my June wrap up and I read 8 books. The first book I read was called As Long As You Love Me by Luann McLean, that's her name. And this I got from NetGalley, and it's a contemporary romance. It's the 4th book in a series called the Heartthrob series. The series follows a set of brothers who were in a boy band called Heartthrob. Their last name is Hart. And this is like many years after that. Like the group's no longer together. So he was like the funny, jokey guy in the boy band, and the heroine whose name I cannot remember. His name is Jessie. The heroine is a ballroom dancer, and she kind of like teaches more than anything else. They are teamed up for a fundraising performance, and like that's how they meet and kind of become friends. It was cute. It was a relatively light story. Murphy, what are you doing? I just rolled over. Oh, I'm not usually like a huge fan of like musician stories, but I felt like this one didn't have a lot of the things that those usually have. Like musician stories are typically, in my experience, very like alpha male, sometimes problematic. This one didn't have that, and it didn't have the angst that I feel like I expect from that kind of story. And I would give the other books in the series a chance. And then I finally read I finally read In Feeney by Krista and Becca Ritchie, because I was just like in the mood. And speaking of angst, this is a pretty angsty story. Oh, I gave As Long As You Love Me 4 stars, and I gave In Feeney 5 stars. I like blew through this, and it's like new adult contemporary romance. It follows a couple who are both in like the circus, so like Cirque du Soleil kind of thing. It is a companion novel to Amour Amour. You don't have to have read Amour Amour. I think if you have read Amour Amour, you'll appreciate this a little bit more. It is a reunited love story, and it's like kind of an interesting take on that, like what separated them basically is what's interesting, and I really, really enjoyed. Of course, I love that trope, so not much of a surprise, and I love Krista and Becca Ritchie. Oh, I scared the Murphy. I loved Luca and Bailey, the couple. I loved them individually and as a couple. Like, you know, sometimes I'm not 100% into the characters as individuals, but here I just like, I loved both of them so much. There was a ton of angst, like I said. I definitely cried. Please, 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 please buy and read this, because I need another story. Like, I know a lot of people, if you've read Amour Amour and if you've read this, I think a lot of people want a Timo, that's how I say it in my head, book, and that would be great, sure, but he already is with the person I assume he's meant to be with, and instead I would like a Dimitri book, who I'm pretty sure is supposed to be with Camilla, and I would just die. And I saw something on, I think it might have been Patreon. I don't think it was Krista and Becca's Facebook, but it was on their Patreon, I believe. And they said something about like mystery books that they haven't announced. And like a little part of me was like, oh my god, maybe it's another Ariel Ethereal book, which is what this series is called, because these books have not done particularly well, so they're more of passion projects for them. And so like in my heart, I'm like hoping that whenever they find a free moment, they're like writing like a Dimitri book or something. And I read another review book, and then I read, it's more of like a novella, and this is called The Risk of Rogues by Sabrina Jeffries. I gave this 3 stars. It's a historical romance. It's part of her Sinful Suitors series, which I think I might have read the first one. I'm not 100% sure. It was cute, it was fast, it was a likable group of characters. It is a reunited lovers story, which I think is a pretty easy way to go with a novella, because you don't have to build as much for the romance. But that being said, the romance did feel a little fast still, like the reuniting and then the like making a decision to spend the rest of your lives together, basically. I think this is a really common problem in novellas, and it's why it requires a really, really, really particular type of author, I think, to write a solid novella. I don't think every author can do it. I mean, it's still a decent book, and if you like Sabrina Jeffries, I'm sure you'll like it. And then I continued with my Bridgertons reread. I am almost done, and I read When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. And fun fact, this was my first ever Julia Quinn novel. It's historical romance. It's the 6th Bridgerton novel. This is actually an unrequited love story, and unlike Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, I actually do like this one. In this one, the hero is the one who's been pining away for the heroine, but he is angsty, but like I feel like Julia Quinn walks that line really well, and he's very realistic. So like he pines, but he also realizes he can't be with her. This one does feel a little more like serious and calm than the other Bridgerton novels. Now it starts with a death. The heroine gets widowed tragically, and so I mean you do have that to deal with, so I'm sure that's part of the seriousness. But Francesca, the heroine and the Bridgerton in this novel, I think she is also just like a calmer Bridgerton, and so that comes across through the tone of the novel. It's a really beautiful story. The characters are beautiful and nice. Yeah, I still like it. And then I read another book from NetGalley, and that was Lone Star. This is gonna like be really blown out, sorry. Lone Star Princess by Lenora Worth, and this is a contemporary romance. I feel like there's something in my nose. It's a contemporary romance. It's set in Texas, which for whatever reason I'm like a fan of Texas set books. I don't know, I've never even been to Texas. I would love to go there though. It was okay, but I found it a little lacking. Like maybe it needed some more editing and like 10 or 15,000 more words for like the character and romance developments. Like it just felt, the pacing was a little weird and the romance felt a little forced. And then I finished one of the books from my spring TBR, which was And the Good News Is by Dana Perino, and I ended up getting the audiobook from my library, and it is not narrated by her. So sad. I gave this 5 stars. The narrator did do an excellent job, but it would have been even better if she had narrated it. And when she talked about her husband and was like voicing her husband, if her husband had come on and done it, I'm just saying that would have been so much better. It's nonfiction. It's basically like, I would say like I don't think they classify it as a memoir, but I would say it's kind of a memoir. But she takes like her life and provides like lessons she learned for you to know and advice. You know, she's just a very positive person, and she's an amazing storyteller, which makes sense. She's been in like public relations. She was the White House press secretary, and I think doing a job like that, to do it well, and I've seen some pretty bad press secretaries, like it's hard. I mean, God bless them, because that is I assume has to be an incredibly hard job, and one of the reasons I love her is because she is such a positive person. I also always love hearing about how she and her husband met. It's so cute. They met on a plane, and that is just, I've heard that story 50 million times. I've heard him tell it, and he tells it beautifully, not just because he has an English accent. You can tell how much he cares about her, and to see, like, you see kind of the struggles in their relationship too in here, like how working for the White House impacted her relationship with her husband, and that's like a really important thing I think to remember. You know, like political figures are still people, and I think it's really easy to forget that. And she does address politics. She obviously has a political leaning. Anybody that works for a White House, as far as I know, typically is aligned with that White House politically. But I think her message of positivity and life lessons and everything kind of transcends all of that, and I think anybody could read this, even if you disagreed with like her political opinions. And what I've always heard is people really like Dana Perino, like on both sides. Like the politicians do like her and respect her. And then I read It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn, which is the 7th Bridgerton novel, and I gave this 3.5 stars. I liked it, but I wasn't like 100% into it. It's really weird. I can't fully explain it. It's pretty fun. The couple has like a really good witty banter between them. This one follows Hyacinth Bridgerton, who is a handful for sure. She has a lot of personality even for a Bridgerton, but overall it's a good story. There's kind of like a mystery element throughout it, which does keep you engaged. So it's a good story. And apparently I can't show you the cover for the last book I have because it doesn't show a cover on my Kindle. I thought it did. And that is Tight Quarters by Annabeth Albert. And this was another NetGalley book I had, and it comes out, or it came out in July. I think it either came out this past week or it comes out next week. I can't 100% remember. I gave this 3 stars. This is the 6th book. Yes, 6th book in her Out of Uniform series, which I have read 2 books prior to this. They are romance, at least one of the characters in the books is in the military. Particularly, I believe they're all Navy SEALs. It deals with some serious military issues and dealing with prejudice and everything, but I think she does a pretty good job of being respectful of those things. It was a cute story. It was a cute romance. I really liked the Bacon, the guy that was a Navy SEAL, his passion for the SEALs and the military and his brothers in the military. That just like leapt off the page, and I really enjoyed reading that. But I did feel this was a little repetitive from her other books. Like the other 2 I read in the series followed the same kind of structure to them, and so that was a little off-putting. I do like her writing, so I think I will keep reading her. I think I'm going to try one of her other series just to see if it's different. And so those are the 8 books that I read in June. In July, I'm traveling. I'm going to Nova Scotia. It's probably going to be a pretty casual vacation. So we have like a house, and I think we're going to spend a lot of time at the house. So maybe I'll get a lot of reading done. Plus we're driving, and it's quite the drive. So I will probably end up reading on the drive too. So yeah, that is my June wrap up. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that, book recommendations, feel free to leave them down below. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.